Everybody, I'm Donald Toms. I'm here with what we're calling kind of the oral history of public television. And we're talking to a lot of people who might be considered pioneers in the business. And I'm talking to just a wonderful pioneer, Miss Linda Taggert. Your title is?
Right now, my title is Vice President of Development.
For Maryland Public Television.
For Maryland Public Television.
And Linda and I go way back. So tell me, Linda, before you came to public television, you did what?
First, I worked on a newspaper, the Catholic Review, and that was a newspaper for the whole diocese of Maryland. Mm-hmm. And I was the urban beat reporter, so I covered the churches that were, in the city,
right,
in Baltimore County. And then I moved on to doing talk radio. I was a producer for the Alan Christian Show and the Luther Starn Show on WBAL radio.
Commercial station.
Commercials.
Okay.
Talk radio. But all along, right after college, I was trying to get into Maryland Public Television. I knew that this was the place that I wanted to work.
Why?
When I was at Syracuse University, Rick Breitenfeld, who at the time was the executive director of Maryland Public Television, came and spoke to our class. And he talked about public media and the family atmosphere there and how they wanted to capture and support the community and tell stories. And I knew then that that's what I wanted to do.
I never knew that. So you got a job here?
Yeah, it took me a little while. I interviewed about 3 different times. Paul Breeding interviewed me, and some other folks as well.
Right.
And the first position I tried for was a position on Critics Place. And my dear friend Lenore Lee got that position. Huh. And then I interviewed for a position with Shuriel Burge. Didn't get that position. But then a position opened up in the News and Public Affairs division with Everett Marshburn and Donald Toms.
That's right.
And I got that position.
Yeah, that was quite a group of people because I was producing a show called Up on the Farm.
And that's one of the shows that I worked on.
That's right. And it moved to the News and Public Affairs division. And so all of a sudden, my first job as a producer was with a farm show. I mean, you got this kid from Baltimore City, and I was the producer of a farm show.
Hey, I know.
And then Everett became my boss. But I remember when you came in, because you weren't like a silly intern, or you were all business. You wanted to learn.
I did.
And you did whatever you could to learn the business, which is what we all see as the road to success. And what did you think of the News and Public Affairs group?
I loved working in the News and Public Affairs department. I loved work. My shows were Up on the Farm and News Wrap.
Oh boy.
So that's one show was on Monday and the other was on Friday.
That's right. And tell the folks what News Wrap was.
News Wrap was a wrap-up of the week's news, and it was a panel of local reporters from the newspapers and commercial television, radio.
Yeah.
And it was really the beginning grounds of some really phenomenal reporters who made it really big in this industry.
Yeah.
But they got their first start on News Wrap, and I did their makeup. As an assistant producer, you did everything.
Of course you did.
On Up on the Farm, my job was we shot and film in the beginning.
In the beginning. With Bill Van Etten?
Yep, with Bill Van Etten. And Betty Korosinski was one of our hosts.
Yes.
And my job was to take the film stock to Towson to get it processed and pick it up when it was done, so that the film crew.
I should have known that. I don't.
Oh yeah. Besides going out on some phenomenal shoots and learn about agriculture.
Well, you think about it. You think about the fact that there we were, 2 people of color, working in agriculture. In some parts of Maryland that just did not ever see, people of color in charge.
Yep.
you know, and I was the producer, and you know, one of my hosts, Glenn Tolbert, said, "They don't know what to do with you." You know, it was kind of fun doing that. So you did that.
But then that wasn't enough. You know, I just loved it so much that on Tuesday they had a show called Inside Washington.
Oh my God.
And they needed some help. And so I asked my boss, Everett Marshberg, can I help them on their show? You know, I did the makeup, I helped, did some assistant producer work on the show, and loved every second of it, every second of it. And whenever I could get my hands on working on any project,
Sure.
I took advantage
Yeah,
of it.
remind me what year did you start in MPT?
I started in 1981.
81. Okay. Oh, I did. Yes, that's. Oh, okay. Yeah, because 81. I become a producer. So, so from that you moved to where?
Okay, so you know, when you work on a lot of shows and what have you, you sort of get noticed by people. And then I was noticed by Ann Darlington.
And Truex Darlington.
And Truex Darlington. And there was an opening in Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser. So now I moved over.
I did not know that.
Moved over to a national show.
Right.
And I was the associate producer on Wall Street Week with Louis.
Yeah, and of course, and for most of us who know that Wall Street Week was one of the most popular shows
Absolutely.
on PBS.
Yes.
And was for a very long time.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so I was one of the directors of
Yes,
Wall
you
Street
were.
every
And
once in a while.
George
So,
Benneman
oh my
and-
goodness,
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So all of a sudden now you're doing that.
Yep. And then Ann Truex Darlington was tasked with creating a unit of national and international productions.
NIP.
Yes. And MPT had a new building built, a new wing, and that was the NIP building, which is now Content. And she asked me to join her team to do national and international productions. And boy, was that fun. Leo Eaton,
Of course.
was our boss. And he came to MPT with a project called, basically almost like a news wrap, but it was, what was it called? Timeline. And basically, the premise was, if you had a newscast back in the day on some of these big events like the Black Death and the Vikings invading country, what would that newscast look like?
Wow.
And so we had a guy dressed in the garb of the time, and he was doing the news. And then we had dramatic recreations of big events in history.
Wow.
And that was Timeline. And my colleague, Maria Nicolo, went over and helped with the shoots on that. But I was tasked to go over and to do the editing. We had international co-production partners, and one of our partners in England was tapped to do all the editing.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me over to supervise the editing.
In London.
In London. And they got me a flat, because I was there for about 3 months doing editing.
I didn't know this.
In London, yes. And it's interesting, because, I had to, MPT gave me a little advance check to go so I can start a bank account, because the state of Maryland didn't allow you to start a bank account in the state's name. So I had to take a big check over and put it in my name so that I could pay per diems and stuff for people who were working on the project.
Yeah. So you did that,
And then
I didn't know this.
then my next project in the new National International department was a project called the New Europeans.
Of course.
The wall in Germany had come down, and there was talk of Europe having a unified currency. And so we went all over Europe, covering and doing stories about this new unified Europe.
So you did that, and then you ultimately moved into
development.
How did that happen?
My mother got ill, and I really felt that I could no longer travel, and do overseas. And a job came up on the board for a pledge producer. And I saw the job, and I went and talked to the director of development, Barry Friedley.
Barry Friedley.
And I said, Barry, I saw you have a job on the board. Gosh, I would love to do this job. But I have no fundraising experience whatsoever. And he said, oh my God, if you would apply for my job, I will teach you everything you need to know. What I need and what I would like is for my pledge breaks to be of the quality of the other productions that MPT produces.
Wow.
And so he wanted my producing expertise, and he taught me everything I needed to know.
And then, of course, you hired me to do Pledge. You was my boss on Pledge.
Yes. And you know what? Isn't that funny how things go around?
I know.
You were my boss,
I know.
and then
I know. And so you did, and I just remember those days because it was live. Those days were all live.
All live.
And it was great, and the pressure was interesting. But you did that for how long?
Oh my gosh, I did that for, oh my goodness, I was at MPT for 25 years.
25 years, and then
I got an opportunity to go to WQED in Pittsburgh, Fred Rogers station.
That's right.
To do
Pledge.
to enhance their on-air fundraising.
And George Miles.
And George Miles was there.
That's
CEO,
that's a
president.
name.
George Miles came to WQED from New York.
Yeah, he did.
From WNET.
No, he did. I knew him in New York.
He was their CFO. WQED was in a bad way. The former leadership, spent a lot of the money, and they were in financial.
I mean, there are stories about how George Miles helped save.
He did.
That station.
He literally saved WQED, and now it's doing phenomenal today. But
so again, you're doing Pledge in a brand new station. Were there values, like MPT, still that same public television sense?
Still the same public television feel. But one of the main things that I learned at WQED, I learned about budgets. Yes, when you're raising money to pay for the gas and electric bill, and you're paying for the staff salaries or whatever. So every day I was looking at my budget to make sure that we were on target to hit our goals.
Sure.
And who would have thought that training helped me to come back to MPT?
Well, because to be honest with you, is that I think when you did come back to MPT, there was a different sense about money.
Yeah.
And about how we're doing in that sense. And there was a renewed, you brought a new expertise back to MPT. And so somewhere along the line, you got promoted to Vice President of Development, not just Pledge.
Yeah, but all of the philanthropic areas of fundraising.
And do you still love it?
I love it to death.
Do you ever think about going back to producing? But you really are producing, though.
Yeah, so my thing is I have to kind of watch myself and pull myself back from producing, because I know I get on the nerves of my fundraising producer, because I always got, you should do this, you should do that.
know.
Hey, you know what, we should get this person in, we should do that. And I have to pull myself back and say, this is Eric's.
I know what you mean.
This is Eric's show now. And when he comes to me for advice, I'll give him that. So I try to stay out of.
Eric Newman.
Yes.
Anyway, this has been great, because you told me some things I didn't realize you had done. And that career of yours has been pretty illustrative.
It really has. And it only can happen at public television when you have people who are working in the industry who are not threatened by you, who want to see you grow, succeed, and do all you can do.
Yeah.
And you're not tied down by unions and that kind of thing.
No, I know that, but because I worked at commercial television, and the budget the budget overrides everything, including content and things like that. And anyway, Linda, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
This was great. It's great talking to you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.